Okay. How many of you just awake before this session? Just be honest. You can say yes, no, okay. Okay, Devan is awake, okay. Ritvik. Okay, I can see some hands are getting raised. Okay. Thank you so much for spoiling your sleep for this session. And I'm sorry for doing that. Fine. So like before we start, I want to know that how many of you have actually tried Flutter before? Feel free to unmute yourself and just say yes, no. So this is going to be an interactive session. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, I've tried it. Yes.
Yes, yes.
Nice. I can
Yes,
see
Sumit.
like almost more than 10 folks have raised the hands. Okay, nice. And how many of you are totally new in Flutter? Those who don't know anything about Flutter and they are just coming here.
Me.
They just know, okay, there is something called Flutter and they just joined the call. Okay, 8 hands raised. Okay, maybe max 10 and then people might have, raised down their hands. Okay, fine. So like we have almost 70-30 or 60-40 ratio, where 60% people are aware what exactly Flutter is, or maybe they might have get a chance to explore the Flutter, and some of them are quite new. So those who are like totally new on Flutter, this session will be a bit difficult for you because this is regarding the state management. So the expectation is you at least know some basics of Flutter, at least what is Flutter and how it works and everything. So still, just stay around, and if you find difficulties, we will be going to take your questions. So let's just get started. Okay, I'm just sharing my screen now. Let me know once it is visible. You guys able to see my screen?
Yes.
It's visible.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so the state management 101 means the state management getting started. So what exactly the state management is and everything. So 101 means just the basics of state management. Okay, so just a brief introduction. So I'm a father of 2.5-year experience. I'm a lead architect at Tata Digital. I'm also a GDE for Flutter and Dart since last 4 years. Apart from this, the professional thing, I'm also running a one community called GDG Ahmedabad since last more than 10 years. I'm also managing one Twitter handle which is like Flutterflex, where you can find all the latest updates regarding the Flutter, whatever happening, whatever the new articles or anything, you can find it. So if you are interested, you can follow that Twitter handle. And also if you want like to start your business, to convert your idea into the application, or you don't know how to do that, feel free to reach out to me. I would love to help you out. I wanted to give one update. How many of you have watched the Shark Tank this season? Oh, I can't see the screen, so you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. We have.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, किसी ने is there anyone who have show the episode of the company called Stage?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, sir.
They told it, right? They are there was a slogan of for them. It's like "हम company नहीं क्रांति है."
Yes.
So that whole application is built on Flutter, that Stage OTT. And I was lucky enough that I got an opportunity to help them in their initial days. So I helped them for 3 months as the consultant to build their application. So their CTO's recommendation is already there in my LinkedIn if you want to cross verify.
Oh wow.
So that's why I'm saying that if you need any help, in terms of converting your idea into the app, feel free to reach out to me. Love to help. Fine. So that's all about the self promotion. Let's just get started. Okay. So in a state management, we can see there are two main things. One is a state, and second is a management. Okay. So let's just understand what exactly the state is. Any idea, any one of you, what according to you a state is? Anyone? Just unmute yourself and just say, what is your thought process? What is your understanding?
Oh, so we can say a state is, like the current instance of the app,
Okay.
basically, where my app is currently. Let's,
Mhm.
I've used Flutter, so I will say an example. Let's suppose the boilerplate code Flutter provides when you create the app. It's
Mhm.
about the counter, right? So when
Mhm.
you increment the counter,
Wrong.
oh,
Wrong.
okay,
Okay. So, who was actually answering initially? Can I just say your name,
yeah, Manav Shah.
Manav?
Yeah.
And who just said wrong, wrong? Can you just say your name? Because I can see on the screen. That's why I'm asking. Okay. The one who was shouting wrong, wrong. Can you just tell me what exactly, why it was wrong and what exactly the right one is according to you? Hello. Yeah, we
I
can
think it
discuss this thing.
was, yeah, it was me, and now he is not answering.
Okay. So you don't know the answer, but you know that whatever the Manav was saying, it's not correct. Okay. Fine. Okay. So Manav, you were almost right. So state is the value of any variable or any object at a given point of time. Like if any point of time, if I see what exactly the value of that variable of that object, that call is a state. Okay. It is still, like very difficult for the folks who are quite new. We can, make it a bit simple. So in Flutter, everything is a widget, like whatever you see on the screen. There are mainly two types of widgets. One is stateless and second is stateful. So if we see stateless widget, so stateless widget might look like this. So there will be a class and it extends from the stateless widget and there is a one method called build. In build method, whatever you write, it just get rendered on the screen. So that's the stateless widget, basic, simple. And then there is a stateful widget. So in a stateful widget, it looks like this, where we have one class and which extends the stateful widget. And then in the stateful widget, we have a method called create state. And then create state is creating an object of our another class, which is the state class. Can you see this? So this class
Uh,
is sending a state.
Rumil bhai, one thing.
Yes.
Can you share his screen again? Because the Nick has interrupted the screen. He shared his screen again. So your screen may be stopped,
Okay.
not visible in fully.
Okay. Let me just do it. Is it visible now?
Yeah, much better.
Yes.
Okay. So we are discussing about the stateful widget. So whenever you create stateful widget, there are actually two classes getting created. One is your like stateful widget class, and there is another class called state class. Now the state is again something new. So that state class is actually the one who is actually storing your state data, right? And that particular state class has its own life cycle. So this life cycle methods can be your init state. That means when this state is getting initialized. Did update widget. That means when your widget is getting updated, then you can compare whether this your old widget and your current widget's data and everything. Then there is a build method. This is the same build method that we have in a stateless widget. And then there is a dispose method so that you can clean up your data, your memory, whatever you have initialized in your init state method. So this is a state class. Now, as you can see, we can create any variable in a state class and then we, manipulate it. So what exactly this dummy state is? So the state of the widget can be changed by the user input. Like for example, you type something like text field or anything, and then that variable value is getting changed from empty to whatever you have typed. Any operation, like for example, in a counter application, when you press on a plus or like on that button, that mathematical operation is happening, like plus one plus one. So any operation can update the state, or the other widget can change the state. Like for example, there is a child widget and there is a parent widget. If something is happening on the parent widget, they are passing the data into the child widget. So these are the ways you can change the value of a variable, and that variable is known as a state. Also, in a stateful widget, the state method is used to notify the widget about the change in the state. So for example, there are like 4 variables in your stateful widget. In your state class, there are 4 variables. Once you update all these variables, your screen will not get updated until and unless you tell your screen that, hey, you need to redraw it. So that means the build method is still showing the old data. Once you call a set state method, your build method will get rebuilt. So the widget get rebuilt each time the set state method gets called. That means even though you are changing the variable, it is not getting shown on the screen. So you are managing your data, but still it's not getting reflected. And how to do this peacefully or greatly, that's what we are going to discuss today. So the standard way is just use set state. As soon as you change the variable, you call set state. Otherwise, you call set state, and inside that there is a callback. You can change your variable data over there. So there are different ways of doing in the default way. So as we discussed till now, that state is equal to data. Correct? Are you guys agree with me till now?
Yeah.
Right? Any
Yes.
doubt till now?
No doubts.
Perfect. So state is equal to date. So that means this function most of the people have seen over the internet. So what exactly that function is? So here you can see the UI is my screen layout. Whatever is happening on my screen is my UI. So my UI is equal to my application state. That means my variable value, right? And this function is my build method. So that means my build method is consuming that variable and then doing operation in the build method. It is showing me the output, which is my UI. So my UI is always coming from the build method by consuming the variables which I have mentioned. So, and those variables are my states. Okay. And the state management is like managing those variables properly. So that means state management is equal to the data management, because we just solve that state is equal to data. So that means state management is equal to data management. So we just need to manage our data in such a way where we can access our data easily, we can modify the data easily, and we can get notified whenever the data is changed. Like for example, I want to update my UI when someone change my variables value from odd to even. When my value is getting changed from odd to even, I want to show a green. When that's odd, I want to show the red. So in that case, I want that notification, or I want something, some trigger point, which can notify me, hey, the data has changed. So these 3 things are the basic thing. I can access that variable, that means I can read the data. I can modify that data, that means I can update that variable. And whenever this updation happens, I can listen to that change. Okay, something is changed over there. So I can react accordingly. So these simple rules are being followed in the state management. This is the only thing that you need to take care of while you implement any state management. So there are different ways of managing data. I mean the state. The standard default way. There is one library called block. So block pattern or block library. There is a MOBAX. There is a river pod. So the river pod is the extended version of the provider. So that's why we are skipping the provider. The inherited widget is like very, very niche and very tech. So I'm going to skip that for now because it requires some different mindset. And that requires some more Flutter fundamentals as well. So we are going to skip for now. We are going to discuss all these 4 different ways, how we can implement a basic API call using all 4 ways. Are you guys ready for this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's see all these options in action. So what we are going to do is my code is readable for all, or should I increase the font?
It's readable.
Okay. Is it readable now? Okay. So you can see that here in my app, in the lib folder, I have one API folder, one block, MOBAX, normal, river pod, homepage, and main. Okay. So this is my home page. In my home page, I'm doing nothing. I have just one app bar and 4 buttons. If I go to my home page and I just full screen it just to make it visible. So you can see I have a scaffold, I have app bar. Then I have just only 4 buttons. You can see there is a column. In the column, I have put the main axis alignment as a center, and then there are the children. In children, I have just simple 4 buttons, all 4 buttons, and all 4 buttons are navigating me to each page. So I have implemented a one API, which is the joke API. So I'll go through it. So this is simple HTTP call. Now, how to make an HTTP call, I'll quickly walk you through. So for that, I'm utilizing this HTTP package that will give me flexibility to call any API. So I'm using this. In that, I'm calling this URL. I have specifically told them that I need a single type of joke. So what exactly is this? Let's just see. So if you see, if I don't pass this, the type, I can see a kind of question answer way of a joke. Like arguing with a woman is like reading a software license agreement. In the end, you ignore everything and just click I agree. So this is like, how do we know Jesus wasn't black? He would have been hung from a tree, not a cross. Okay, some dark jokes. Okay, and if I type a single, I know that there is just a single joke. So UDP is better in the COVID era since it avoids unnecessary handshake. So those who are from computer background, they understand this joke. So this is the sample response. So what I'm doing is I'm converting this JSON into my object, and then I'm reading this value. Even though I don't require any of this thing, but still I have just converted this thing. The easiest way to convert this thing is just open a website, JSON to Dart. Okay, copy this code, Control A, Control C, go here, Control V, put your class name, like for example, joke response, click on generate Dart, and it will give you the total class. You can simply copy, go to your code, create your class, paste it, and you are done. Simple, right? So why this class is required? So when you call an API, this is a GET API. So I'm calling http.get as it requires some time. So that's why it's await. Then I got the response. I'm checking that the response code is HTTP 200. That means status code is 200. Here is a constant. Once it is 200, I'm converting my response into my object and I'm returning that object. Simple. Once I get this object, I want to show the joke data, like which is this. I want to show this on my screen. So by how to fetch it and how to convert it into it, we have seen using this code and this code. Now I want to implement that in all of this my 4 ways. Like for example, in a normal way, I got the joke, and when I click on refresh, I'll get the new joke. Okay, so this is a very simple normal way. So how I can use this API method in a different state management way. So let's go first with the normal way. So in a normal, what do you think? What should I have implemented here?
Set state.
Okay, but how I can call this method? To call this method, as this method is a returning future. So if you want to implement something where your data is coming with a bit delay, and that method is actually returning a future, you should be implementing a future builder.
Yeah, builders.
Okay, so in this code, see, if I go back, okay, let me just do one thing. Keep this here. Okay, so that will be easy for you. Okay, so you can see in a normal page, I have app bar. a central text, and a floating action button. So here again, I have a bar, floating action button, and then center I have some logic. And this logic is been wrapped with the future builder. So future builder have two parameters, which is like very important to learn. First is future, like our builder is based on this future. So once according to this future response, the builder will build our widgets. So here what I'm doing is, here I'm saying that, hey, this snapshot is the data which future will be giving me. So I'm just checking that, hey, snapshot.connection state is waiting or it is resolved. So if it is waiting, I'm just returning my central progress indicator in the center widget. If it's not waiting, that means whether it's in error stage or whether it is in like resolve state, I'm just simply showing the data in my center text. So here I'm saying that, hey, snapshot dot data. So data will what data it will return. If I go to the fetch joke, the return type is joke response, and joke response is my object. So when I say snapshot dot data, it will actually giving me this object joke joke response, because the return type is joke response, and then I can directly use the joke. Now why I'm putting this question mark is because I have told that this data can be null. So I'm just checking if this data is null, then it should show press refresh button to get a joke. And if it's not null, it will fetch the joke. Again, I'm checking this joke is not null. And if it is null, it will show this text. Otherwise, it will show me the joke. So this is the easiest and simplest way. But now the problem here is, so if I just remove this onPress method for a while, okay, and if I go here, it does nothing. The reason is this future builder runs only one time when this build method is getting executed. So when this code is getting executed, what is happening? The build method first time get executed, it comes to scaffold, it renders the app bar, it comes to future builder, it calls this future. Based on that, it is rendering my screen. Let me just show you. If I go back, come again with the normal, see, it's just refreshing and then showing me data. So that means initially the connection state was waiting. Once it got the data, it is doing it. Now on click of it, I want to call this method again. So how I can do this? I just want to rebuild this. And to rebuild this, I have to create this class. This is my joke normal as in the stateful widget. If it is a stateful, then only I will be able to do state. So that's why I'm doing state. I hot reload. And then every time I click on a refresh, I get a new joke. Simple. Any doubt in this normal method?
No doubts.
No.
No? Fine.
No.
Perfect. So the next is a block. So again, see, everything is working same. Only I'm just showing how different it is. So in a block, so block depends on three data. So let me just show you. Flutter block. So if you go to the Flutter block library, where is the graph? Okay. It looks like it's not here. Okay, let me just do it for you. Okay, so this is my favorite tool, Microsoft. So what is happening in the block? So block has three things. First is the main block. Then there are state, and then there are events. So this is block. This is event. And this is state. That means when I click on any of the things in my screen, it should trigger an event. It should trigger an event. Okay. and based on that event, it does something. This event will call some method in my block. This block do some operations, and then it returns some state from this. Now this block is consumed by my screen. So this is my UI or slash widget, and this block is consumed by my UI widget. And here I have, for example, a button. And this button will call event. So if I want to implement a block, I required at least three things: events, state, and block. So if you go back to our example over here with the block, so what are the different states that we can define? State means what are the different kind of data that we want on the screen. So we want when a joke is being fetched. So we are actually fetching a joke from the server, right? So the state will be either fetching state or either the fetch state, correct?
Yeah.
So rather than fetching, can we call it as a is loading state? So there will be a loading state or there will be a kind of joke fetch state. Now to trigger this, we have only one event, fetch joke event, right? So when this page is getting called, we are calling an event that, hey, fetch joke. Here again we are calling fetch joke event. So this kind of event and state we have to first identify for the screen, and then we have to write the code accordingly. So if I go to the block part, in block you can see there are three folders: block, events, and states. Let's just go first for the events. So in event, I have created one abstract class so that I can make it very in terms of in the checking, because all my events should be from the joke event for this block. So that's why I've created one abstract class and equatable. Now this equatable is again one package. So Flutter block and equatable. So we are using the Flutter block library. Equatable is to make it immutable. So once the data has been there, we are making it that as a final. You can consider it as a final. So once the data is there, it won't be mutable, and you can check it with each other, because in Dart, whenever you pass any data like A is equal to B, then B actually passing the reference, not actually the value. So here we want to pass that thing, the data, and that's why it's equatable we are using it. So here we are using just one event, as we discussed, is a fetch joke event, a basic event. And this event will, when we call this event, it will do something that we'll see in our block. Now we'll go to the state. In state, we have defined three state. One is like fetching joke state, which is like, you can say is loading or fetching joke or any name you want to give. Then joke loaded state. Now when this joke is loaded, I want that joke, right? So that's why I'm creating this joke response as an object, and I'm passing this as in my constructor. So whenever this joke is been loaded, I can pass this, and when I want this data, I can also get this from this state. So this joke loaded state, and then joke loading error. Like for example, if API gets failed or if something wrong happened, I want to show the error message as well. So that's why I'm creating one string error and I'm passing this. So that means we have three state: one, fetching joke state, joke loaded state, joke loading state, joke loading error state, my mistake. And here in joke loading, we have error. In joke loaded state, we have a joke response. Simple. Now, how we are utilizing this thing using this diagram? So what will happen when I call event as in the fetch joke. So if I go to the event, if I this event will trigger, what should happen? First, this fetching joke state should get delivered to the UI so that we can show the loader. Once we deliver this state, we will actually do a API call that we have written. Once we get the response from the API, we will call this state, joke loaded state, and with that response. And we will wrap this whole logic into try catch so that if any exception happens, we will return joke loading error. So whatever I say to you, I just wrote the same code here. So if you just look at this code, so this is my joke block. It is containing two things. It extends from a block. This block have two kinds of stuff. One is events, one is state. That means this block have all the joke events and all the joke state. As soon as my joke is get initialized, I'm just doing a one code that if I get this event, what I want to do. So if I get this event, I'm getting one event and one emit object. So emit is kind of a stream. Now, what is stream that we are going to skip for a while? If required, we'll discuss in the Q&A session. But consider it as in the pipe, as in the pipe. Are you guys able to see me, or you can just only see the screen?
No, we are able to see you. Yes.
Okay, fine. So emit is kind of one event which is triggering every time. So there is a pipe. Every time in a pipe, I want to pass something. Like for example, I want to pass the ball from one end to another end. So this pipe is an empty pipe, and I can pass balls in it, and that ball can be a red, yellow, green, anything. And whatever ball I pass, I'll get that ball over here. So what I'm doing is this block is actually kind of a stream where the another end is been listened by my widget. Here, this first end is a kind of my block. So from here I'm emitting. So here I emit that okay, fetching joke state. Chalo ye gaya, fetching joke state. Then I'm doing some process. So you can see that I'm calling an API. I'm getting the response, and then I'm emitting joke loaded state with this response. So I'm just sending the joke loaded state with my response. And if anything goes wrong, then I'm passing joke loading error and with the string. Now, how all these things is been consumed? So if we go to our code, so this is my code. Again, app bar, floating action button, and my central logic. Now, central logic, we have block builder. So this block builder is having two things. One, which kind of block that we want to utilize to building our widgets. So that's the joke block. So this block that we created here, this, and which are the states that we are going to receive from the block. So as we discussed, there are like fetching, joke state, joke loaded state, and joke loading state. So here we just need to check in the builder that what kind of state we are receiving, and we just have to write the code accordingly. Like if the state is fetching joke, we just simply write a circular progress indicator. If the joke is loaded state, we are writing our code. And as this has a parameter, if I go back to my state, you can see the properties, the props properties, it has a joke response. So that means I can state dot joke response dot joke. So I can, fetch the joke from here, and I can pass it on my text. If this state is a get emitter, which is like joke loading error, I know there is an error property, so I can just simply write state dot error. That's it. Now, the main point while using the block is when you use block and when you want to make an API, when you want to emit this event, how you can emit it. Like for example, when the screen is getting loaded, I'm actually emitting a state that fetch joke event. So how I can emit that event? Because if I don't emit that event, this code will not get executed. So to make this code, I want to emit this event. In a block, when you do it, make sure that you have a parent widget where you are wrapping your code with the block provider. So ideally, I could have, wrap this code into my home page or either into my main app. But this is the best practice how you can do it. You can create a container widget. So here I could have written joke with block container. And here I'm just, writing my block provider, which block is I'm going to provide. And then my joke with block widget. Here I'm writing joke with actual widget, which I am wrapping with my block provider. So for this widget, what kind of block I'm providing? I'm providing my joke block where I'm first initially giving my initial state, because my initial state will be, kind of a loading state. So I'm just doing is fetching joke state, which is my default state. And then I'm calling my event. I can also write in this way if I convert it in more easy way. So I can write it like this way. Okay, so I can also write this way as well. So I'm just creating my variable and I'm just, like giving back my variable. And meanwhile, I'm actually calling initial event rather than in init state, I'm calling over here. So that's why I can, convert my whole widget into the stateless widget. So that's how we are doing it. And this is the shorthand way of writing the code is where I'm creating an object, and by double dot, I can access that object method and I'm passing it. So this is a block way of calling an API. Any doubt till now? Any questions? In block?
No doubts.
Everyone, how with me?
Yeah, with you, no doubts.
Perfect. So now the next is Mobex. How many of you have tried Mobex before this?
Yes, I have tried.
Sorry?
Yeah, I have tried.
Okay, what's your name?
Mihir.
Okay, Mihir. Mihir has tried. Okay, is there anyone else apart from Mihir?
Yes, Druman, I have used
Okay, can you just say your name, please?
Hardik.
Hardik. Okay. I guess Hardik, you are also working at Tata Digital, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Fine. Okay, so Mobex. So Mobex is a library. Let me just walk you through it. So Mobex actually initially was a JS library, JavaScript library, and then like one of the GD, Pawan Podila, he converted this library into the Flutter, this Mobex. And right now I'm working with him. So that's why at Tata Digital we are using the Mobex. So Mobex has two different libraries. So one is a Mobex core, which is doing actual the stuff, and Flutter Mobex, which gives you, Flutter related stuff. So if I go back to my code and I'll show you the map of spec, you can see I have added two packages, Mobex and Flutter Mobex. So in Mobex, what is happening? So if I open the Mobex and if I go, okay, Mobex documentation, Flutter. Yes. So what happens here? Where is the diagram? Okay, so what is happening here? So the way in a block, we have block, state, and events. Here we have action and observables. So the variable which we want to track, we call it as observable, and the methods which are changing this observable, will call it as action. That means we take any action, it actually changes the observable. This observable notifies and we render the screen. Okay, so that means we call action, it muted the observable, it notifies the screen. Now, when you notify, then there are some side effects which you consider. Like for example, we were taking an example of when my value will get changed from odd to even, I want to show the red or I want to show the green accordingly. So that's the side effect that we are tracking. So that thing is known as a reaction. Like I can track anything with the reaction. Like I want to track this particular XYZ object, I can write in reaction. In this session, I'm going to skip the reaction. We will be just taking care of actions and observables. So what happens here? I just create one class, and whatever the value that I want to listen or I want to track, I'll create as an observable, which can be readable and which can be writable. I'll just change it, and I will get a notification. I mean, I will get notified that this value is getting changed. So if you go back to the first, let me just show the output. Again, the output is same. No change. Okay, the same output, but in a Mobex, we are writing a store. Store is nothing but a normal class. You can see it's just a normal class. Here I have created two observable variables. One is loading, which is my Boolean variable, just to track whether the API is calling or not, and my JSON, my joke response, which is nullable. So by default, it will be null because there won't be any data. And then there is a normal method. So when you go to the documentation of the Mobex, you can see there is a different way of writing the code, where it has this observable as an annotation and then a method as in the action, and then you have to generate the code. Here I'm showing the another way which is not available on the documentation. So here you don't have to generate your code. You don't have to generate your .g file, and your code will be much more simpler. So what we can do is we can just simply write a method that hey, fetch jokes. In jokes, when we are fetching the jokes, I want to make isLoading is equal to true, and I'll make an API call. When I get this, I want to fill this object, and then I'll say isLoading is equal to false. Simple. Now, as in a normal way we are doing with this, when we want to rebuild our UI, we are calling a setState method. Here, when we want to notify that hey, our observable has been changed, we are putting this in runInAction method. So runInAction has a one callback, and here I'm just passing it like response.value as a response, and isLoading value is equal to false. Simple, nothing new, nothing more than that. And I can skip this written value as well. So now how I will write the code for this? Simple, very simple. I'll simply go to my code. I'll simply write, I'll create one object, joke store, simple. And I'm calling this method fetch jokes. So that means whenever this first time it will get called, I will calling an API. Now you can see I have wrapped this, my center part, with the observer widget. This observer widget is coming from my Flutter Mobex. And if I go to store, you can see I don't have Flutter Mobex, it's only Mobex. So that means this observable thing is coming, this runInAction is coming from Mobex. And when it is my widget, it is coming from the Flutter Mobex. So that's why we require both these libraries. So what is happening in an observer? It will call this observer whenever the observable, any observable that we are observing here, that means we have reference here, the data will get changed in this or in this, it will simply call this builder method by default. and it will re-render only this part. So rather than re-rendering the whole screen, the way we do in a normal, which is like, when you click on set state, it is actually rebuilding the whole build method. Almost similar thing happening in our blog, where my whole thing is getting rebuilt. I'm just, like changing my tree, like circular progress indicator to this, center, text, everything. If I go back to my blog code, you can see that this center I have written, multiple times. The center, right? So this MOBEX is help us to make a code more readable. So you can see the joke store dot is loading dot value. If this value is true, I'm just showing circular progress indicator. If the value is false, I'm just showing my joke value, and I'm just checking if my joke value is null. I'm just putting one message that, hey, press the refresh button. And if I want to call this method again, which is like my fetch jokes, in my floating action button, I'm just simply calling class dot method name. As this is just a simple class and this is just a simple method, I just need to do this. Very simple. Easy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
But
Uh-huh.
yeah, I have a question that
Yeah.
we are showing off that please press the refresh button. How that thing will work in the return? Okay. Yes. So the
So we are not returning it. We are just calling this method. So if you
Okay.
see, I'm calling this method. Now this method is not returning anything. This is just updating these two values.
Okay.
And this two value we are observing here in the observer. So as
Yeah.
soon as this value will get updated, accordingly my UI will get rendered.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So so now the trickiest part is how you are actually writing the value, how you are writing the code. So most of the time when you write the code in Flutter, make sure you are updating the variables. So that's why we talk initially that the state management is equal to data management. Till now you are writing your code before joining the Flutter. You might have write your code in C++, Java, where you are calling a method and that method is giving you a data and then you are using that data. Correct. But here in these examples, whether it's in our normal way, whether it's our block way, we are actually updating the variables, and that variable is actually showing the data. So here, how our data is been updated based on this value, correct? If this value is
Yeah.
false, then this value is being displayed. Now here, if we don't have a joke response, it will show this. If we have a joke response, it will show us a joke. So that's how this thing has been developed. So when you write a Flutter code, always take care that your UI, your Flutter only take care about your actions. I mean, calling a method to update it, to update the data, and reading the value from the data, or from the variables. And your whole business logic. Can you see there is no single business logic here? It's just
Yeah.
calling simple methods, and the whole business logic is resides in my store. Same with the blog as well. This is my whole business logic. Yes, my whole logic is here. This is just reading the data. If data is this, then I'm showing this. That's it. So when you write a Flutter code, make sure that you don't mix and match. And that's why the default way is not that accurate. Okay, because we are writing our most of the time business logic over there. Like I have seen people many times doing this mistakes. So they are just calling this method and this parsing. This parsing thing they do on a UI. They do over here in the builder. If you got the data, they actually they directly return this. So rather than returning joke response, they directly return this response. So what they do is they do like this: http.response response, and they directly do this return. Simple. They do this direct response, and whatever the response comes, that they do this all this operation serialization and everything on a widget level. So that's not a good practice. So avoid that, please, if you are doing this. So any doubt in the MOBEX till now?
Clear.
No.
Clear.
Easy, right? Mobex is easy, right? I'm
Yeah,
competitive to block.
it's quite similar to GetX, no? OBS, OBX.
I
You
don't
know,
know about GetX. I haven't used it, and I don't encourage you to explore the GetX as well. It's an anti pattern. It doesn't follow the Flutter standards, even though it's easy. So if you learn GetX, you will not able to understand how exactly the Flutter is working.
okay.
So I strongly I'm like strongly in not support with the GetX. So I do not support that. So make sure that you follow the standard one rather than the unstandard, which is just helping you to build the app very fast. GetX will give you a trouble when your app will become big.
Okay. Because a lot of people were saying GetX is easier to implement.
Yeah, GetX is easy,
Yeah.
really easy. But the problem is when your app will grow with more than 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screens, and when you have like some nested like navigations and everything, then you will start getting troubles, and then your app becomes slow, and you don't know how to pass the data because there is the context is static, and which is like totally anti pattern for the Flutter. So in Flutter, the context is actually that position of that widget in the tree.
Okay. Yeah.
For example, you have a whole widget tree, like scaffold, then app bar, then body. You have another widget in another widget. If
Yeah.
you take the context of it, it has this context of this widget.
Yeah.
What happens in GetX is it takes like common context as a central, and
Yeah.
when you go, you can access directly this context, and that's why to call your toast, to call your snake bar, everything is easy in GetX into
Yeah.
navigate because it uses that root context as a static context.
Okay.
And that is actually not the right one. When you want to do something only for this part, then you will get some trouble. You won't be able to do it.
Okay.
So that's why I avoid that.
Okay.
Fine. Okay, so I can see one joke which is like knock knock. Who's there? Very long pause. Java. Okay, so Java is slow. There are some good jokes.
Yeah, actually.
Doctors say, I have some news about your baby. Parents, don't tell us the gender. We want to keep it a surprise. Doctor say, oh, I get it. You are those type of people. Okay, well, IT is not breathing. Okay. My little daughter came to me all excited saying, Daddy, guess how old I will be in June. This is a dark joke. I want to skip. I have read this. Okay, some good jokes. If Bill Gates had a dime for every time Windows crashed, oh wait, he does. Fine. So now the last thing is RiverPod. So RiverPod is quite interesting. So if you guys have used the provider, how many of you have tried provider before? Anyone?
Me,
Okay, what's your name?
Simran.
सिमरन. Okay. जा सिमरन जा, जी ले अपनी जिंदगी. कितने लोगों ने ये लाइन आपको बोली है? सिमरन टिल नाउ?
बहुत, almost सबने.
Okay, fine. Okay, so let's talk about the provider. So in RiverPod is extended version of the provider. So there are some issues with the RiverPod, with the provider, and all the problems had been solved by the RiverPod. So what are the problems that I have, that copy pasted? Yesterday only I got this from somewhere. Okay, where is this? Oh, looks like I missed that. Uh-oh. Fine. There was one of the good trade on LinkedIn that someone has posted: RiverPod versus provider. Provider versus RiverPod. I actually like that thing. Yeah, this one. This is like very nicely written, so that's why I didn't want it to copy paste this. So what I can do is I can copy the link and put it in the chat so everyone can read it. So what exactly this thing is? So in the provider, there was a problem with the scope where you have to define the scope for your provider. In Riverpod, it is done automatically. Asynchronous support is good in Riverpod. This is strongly typed. Earlier, when you use the provider, you have to define which type of provider it is returning. That type safety was a problem. The performance has also been improved. The learning curve is bit there because it took me some time to understand how Riverpod work, and still I'm not that great with the Riverpod. And but the good part is they have improved a lot. So if you have worked with the provider, the code is same for the provider, the same code. So what we are doing is we are creating one class. In class, we have created two variable, which is like is loading and same joke response. I'm extending with the change notifier, and whenever this data is changed, I'm calling notify listeners. Simple, right? Easy. Any doubt in this code? What we are doing is we are calling one method in the constructor. So whenever we get the object of our provider, we are actually calling an API like this method. And this method, what does it do? It actually called my is loading is equal to true. Then again, I notify listeners so that this become true. I call an API, I get the response, I make it false, and then I again notify the listeners. So when I was using with the only provider, I have a consumer, and that consumer is always listening to these variables, and then it will update the value the way we are doing with the MOBAS. Now with the Riverpod, they have updated some of the things. They have introduced with the consumer widget. We still have the consumer, like for example, if I can wrap with widget and which is like consumer. So I still have this consumer widget, which has the builder method. And you can see the reference is already here. So I can do the same thing with the consumer as well, apart from the consumer widget. So you can see my widget is not extending a stateless widget. It is extending a consumer widget. So consumer widget is equal to a stateless widget, but it has some added functionality, which is like in the build method, I'm getting a reference, my widget reference. And from reference, I'm actually watching my provider. So I have created my joke provider here. I want to make it in a observable way. Observable means I can track it. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a one variable as a change notifier provider, and I'm passing my class. So now this is my global variable. This variable, I can use it from anywhere, from any class. Now, what I want is I want to listen for two kind of changes. One is loading and jog response. So what I'm doing is reference.watch. That means keep watching from this provider. I'm interested to know if there is any change in is loading variable from this jog provider. If there is a change, it will update here. Same thing here. And based on this, I'm just writing my code. Simple. Is loading is true, I'm passing this. If loading is false, padding. If there is no data, show this. If there is data, then show this. Same thing on my on-press. Now I'm not watching it. I want to read this and then call the method from this provider. So reference.read fetch joke, and it will call my method. One trickiest thing in Riverpod is you have to take care of in the main method. So my main class, if I go to my main class here, my whole app should be wrapped by the provider scope. So what exactly happening with the Riverpod is now I don't require any dependency injection. Like for example, earlier when I was using a provider from one class to another, or some nested one, I have to use a get it or some other dependency injection library. With the Riverpod, you don't have to do it. Now, whatever the state that you have defined here is been stored, all this provider state is been stored in provider scope. That means throughout the app. I can use this in any of my class, and then it will work. So based on this exercise, I can tell you the easiest thing is Mobax, according to me. The next easiest thing is provider with the river pod. But to understand, because there are a lot of things in river pod, so it might take some time to learn. But it is a good that it makes your code more small and more readable. So that will go on number 2, according to me. Number 3 will go for the block, because I hate writing unnecessary code. And this is like unnecessary code, right? Just for one thing, I have to write this class, I have to create equitable, blah, blah, blah. So that's why I'll give it a 3rd rank for the block. And obviously the normal is the avoidable, the last one. So any doubt till now?
We are pretty much clear upon that.
Okay, great. So let's go back to the slides. So thank you. That's it. So that's it from my end. I hope you enjoyed. You learn what exactly the state is, what exactly the state management is, how you can utilize different libraries, which library you should use, why you should use the different state management library, or which one is easy for you to learn. So there are a couple of options. Feel free to explore and identify which one do you like the most. Thank you.
Yeah, so now we are open to questions. So if anybody has question, they can unmute themselves and also put it in chat box.
I have a question actually.
Sure, go for it.
So, based on the complexity of the project,
Mhm.
which state management should be actually used? Like based on the complexity.
Based on the complexity, I mean, what do you mean by the complexity? How do you define complexity?
Like if there are too many classes, too many widgets in the project, and there are too many variables to track, and the project is quite nested and complex in itself, then which state management tool should we use?
Any example you can give, like any screen you can share and just tell that, hey, Drumal, this is, looks complex according to me, so that I can answer accordingly. Because this is like very, open-ended question. Because there are so many variables how you can track. So ideally, see, there are 2 different kind of state management which I skip. One is like on a page level. So on a page level, you want to manage those variables, and there are some variable which you want to manage across the app. Like if we take an example of e-commerce application, okay? So in e-commerce application, the cart, the value of a cart can be updated from anywhere from the app, correct? Whether you are in an electronics category, whether you are in a food category, whether you are in your clothing category, you can add anything into the cart. And that cart should be managed from anywhere inside or throughout the app. But on a screen, like for example, you are on a clothing screen where you are selecting one kind of cloth, and then there is a state called size or the color, right? So you have one t-shirt, and then the t-shirt have a different sizes from small to triple XL, and then it has a different color, red, yellow, green, blue. So that particular state is become your page level or your screen level state, and then your card become your global level state. So you both can, you can manage those state on a different way. If you take an example of a Mobex, you can create 2 different stores. In block, you can create 2 different block for this. Riverboard, you can create different provider for this. So it again depends. All these 3 method, all those 3 libraries are good, but one should go with where your team is more easy to jump on, or one which is like very easy to manage. If you know how to write the test cases for riverpod or for Mobex or for block, that will be easy for you. Most of this thing of selection of library depends on the architecture, how you are architecting your app. Like I have given example. If I create an app, I keep my logic layer and my UI layer very different. So, and I'm a kind of a dev where I avoid writing unnecessary boilerplate. So if you ask me, I will not write it with this thing with the block. I will write either with the Mobex, either with the river pod. So that's my opinion on it.
Got it.
I also have a question.
Yep.
While explaining for Mobex, you said you which is a bit slightly different from what they're showing us. Is there any way we could get a sample of
Your voice is
your
breaking.
different
Your voice. Can you just come again? Your voice is breaking for me.
when you're explaining the part for Mobex, you said you are showing a slightly different way of writing the code from the one given in the documentation. Is there any way where we can get a sample of your different version?
So, you need a reference of the way I have written the code.
Yes.
Okay. So what we can do is I can raise a PR in the documentation of the Mobex, and we can do something. By the way, I will be going to post this whole code into my GitHub, and I will be sharing the link with the path, and he will share with all of you, so that at least you have the visibility of the code which I demoed today.
Yes, that would be more helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I was going to ask you the same now.
Yeah. I actually wrote this code in the today morning itself, so that's why I haven't uploaded on the GitHub. I'll upload it on the GitHub with some more clarification, and if required, I'll add the README as well for you to understand. We'll add some reference links as well, so that it will be easy for you to understand. Yeah. Do we have any further questions?
Hello. Yes. I actually wanted to ask you, the last one was the last one was record call, right? So you said we are using listeners, okay, notifiers and all. So what actually does in the backend, is it using the normal method of set state, or it's doing something different? Then why we call it efficient?
Good question. So if you go into the nitty-gritty of the provider and river pod, it is actually using the inherited widget.
Okay.
And the way it is doing the scoping and everything, it is using like some good concepts of the Dart, where it is observable, and I don't know how I make it simple for you. So there are a couple of things where you can scope in, scope out, but I don't know how I can make it simple for you to understand, because these concepts are quite a bit complex. Let me just try by sharing my screen and walking you through the code. So you ask for this. Okay, fine. So let's go for the provider scope. Okay. Do you understand this macro unconditional provider scope, something like this?
No.
Static provider contents of. So if you are really interested, and if you want to really go see, the comments already been written.
Okay.
So you can read those comments, but I mean, to make it simple for you, give me some time. I wasn't expecting this question, so I'm not prepared, honestly, to make it in a simple way to explain you. So, but this is a good question, how this is doing from inside. So it is doing using the inherited widget, that is for sure. And for the scoping and everything, I guess it is using something static over there, some its own build context. But again, depends on inherited widget of exit type. Okay. It is doing the generics. It is using the generics types for doing the stuff. Do you know what is generics?
No, actually.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me just give you some idea of it. Okay. Are you aware of the notation of like T notation, like this kind of?
Yeah, I am aware of it. Yes.
So do you know what exactly this T notation is?
Like, I've used it. I've seen it in somewhere. Uh, it was used with future and builders and all the stuff.
Okay.
मैंने वहाँ देखा था.
Let me just give you the example of list. I guess that will help you. Final list string data. So I go for list and this T or E example. This is mine. I can put any kind of object over here.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a string, whether it's object, and that's why whenever I can define list of like joke response as well, joke provider, anything. Correct?
Yeah, correct.
So this is called the typecasting. So that means here it's a generic, but I can specify the type. As soon as I specify the type like string, I can't pass anything over here. I can't pass the number. It will throw me an error.
Yeah, because
Right.
it's a string.
Yeah, so now it's a string. But if I change it to integer, it won't throw me an error.
Huh.
So earlier, what was the problem with the provider is when we are using the provider, consuming the provider, we have to pass this specifically. Right.
Okay.
So, like for example, if I have multiple providers like joke provider and then other provider, then whenever I am accessing this in the consumer widget, like in the reference, I have to do it like ref dot watch, and then here I have to write this like joke provider, and then here I will be writing as a joke provider. So earlier I have to write something like this, then only it will work. But now if you see the watch, it is returning me T type. Is the T type and which is already listenable of the T type. So that means whatever type I am passing here, it is returning me the same type. So that's why I don't have to write.
I don't need to write this explicitly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it will return me only joke type only. See, it become now joke provider.
Okay.
If I pass here integer, no, it should be like the provider listenable. So I have to create like any provider.
जिसमें होगा वही होगा.
Correct. So that's how it works. Provider. If I just write normal provider reference, and if I pass like 2, you can see it become integer.
Okay. Yes.
If I pass as a string,
It becomes a string. Okay.
So earlier this kind of thing was not available in the provider. So Riverboard has added these things. So that's why the code become very strict in terms of like the strict type checking. So the article that we were going through. What is this article? Okay, sorry, I just shared the link here. So if you go through this article, it will help you to understand. See, it's strongly typed. So Riverboard is a strongly typed library, which means that is used to Dart type system to enforce type safety. So now, even though by mistake, you can't get any other provider because you're already passing the joke provider, you can't get anything else.
Okay.
If you type here something dot something else, you can't get any reference. If you have multiple providers, you can only get the reference of is loading from this provider only.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
I hope I was able to help you in some way.
Yes, I got some idea. Yeah.
Fine. Cool. Do we have any further questions, or we are good to go to enjoy the Sunday?
Just one question from my side. I know a little bit. I worked with GetX and MobX both. Work with both, and now I want to try. Now I want to try new state management. So should I go with Block or Riverport? I know a little bit about Block, and as I can see, Riverport is also trending in Flutter. So which state management should I try next?
I should suggest go for both because you don't know if you are looking for some new opportunity in your professional career. You don't know like that when you join any new team what they are using it. So it's good to have knowledge of both like all the available options. But again, make sure that while doing this, you don't get into the rabbit hole. And the rabbit hole, I mean, like you don't go in that way that you oppose other things and you say that no, that's bad and that's good. you should have, like proper understanding when this particular thing is good or bad. Like for example, if like I was able to, justify that why, according to me, the block is not as suitable because I don't like to, write the boilerplate code. But maybe for someone who like, very strict flow of the data, where they know that, okay, in this screen, I have only this kind of state, 2 or 3 state, and only this kind of events, then the block is the good use case for that, where, your code will be more, I mean, not the code, your app flow will be more readable, and you can define it that, okay, if this happens, only this thing can be happen on the app. Whether in the river pod or mobiles, there are high chances that, anything can happen if you change any data. So again, it depends, it goes on your use case. But if you have already used the mobex, I'll suggest first go with the river pod, read about it, and then go for the block. So that will be easy for you to try.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So is there any other questions?
No, it's all clear now.
Okay.
Fine.
So I think now we are good to go with our Sunday, right? Because it's already afternoon, and I'm sure that Drumil sir also wants.
Some rest. Hello.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So guys, feel free to reach out to me if you have any further stuff. This is my kind of online presence, so you can find me with this ID at the Duma1981, or maybe you can reach out to me via LinkedIn. So this is my LinkedIn profile. You can search it. Again, it's a Duma1981. So if you search Duma1981, you can find me. So I'm available. I'm active over there. This is the Twitter. You can reach out to me via Twitter as well. So this is again the same profile, and this is the Flutterflex account which I was mentioning here. So you can follow this for all the updates regarding the Flutter. Okay. Oh, 19.8. So if you guys support, we can reach to the 20,000.
Yes,
Sure.
sure.
We'll spread it out in our community.
I'm
also.
actually following
Direct
it.
awareness.
It's-
Oh, thank you, Manav. So if you really enjoyed this session, feel free to give me the shout out on social media. So at least I know that what is your feedback is. So share your feedback on social media, tag me, and tell me how does it went. And if you think that there is some a modification required, that also feel free to post over there. So I will take that feedback and will improve in the next session whenever you guys invite me.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a happy Sunday.
Thank you. Thank you, Drumil. Bye.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Drumil
Okay,
sir.
bye.